They will not sound identical, but the frequency should be close to the same. Now, was that the same frequency? Well,
Not
I would
really.
assume it is, but, oh, he will not. Let's see if we can get the beats. If it's dead on, which it won't be, but if it's dead on, it would sound like a single sound. If they're slightly off, you should picking up the trill of beats.
If it's dead on, they'd be amplified, wouldn't they?
True, yeah. Do it without that.
It's pretty close.
There's a little bit of a trill there. I hear a little bit of an extra of a vibrato, which means that at least we're within striking distance.
Do you think it's because of the curvature of the, whatever that is?
Of the music too? Sure. No, I don't think that's the main thing. This computer's off. That's it.
That's true. As long as everybody believes it.
It is the most inconsistent part of that experiment.
This physics demonstration is always important.
Mhm.
All right, third harmonic. The wavelength is going to be 2/3 times the length of it, 0.79. Which is something spectacular. That divided by 3, so 0.526.
26.
Meters. And so the frequency we should hear 343 meters per second divided by 0.526 meters. So it should be
652.1.
652.1.
Yes.
Hopefully you can see that they're somewhat close. See, hopefully you can hear that they're somewhat close.
Yeah.
And then without this playing, yeah, I'm not sure I'm noticing a difference there. Anyway, it came out better the other day. The difference between the two was the length. I measured from a different point last time. Oh well.
Do you think maybe measuring from the beginning of the handle where it stops,
There?
no, yeah, the little, undulations, what do you call those?
But that is where I measured it to this
Yeah,
time. Last time I measured it to here.
okay.
So if I did it to there, what would that do?
It would increase the length, which would do what?
Decrease
Decrease the
the
frequency.
Yeah.
frequency.
So it's 83. So if we swung it to the other extreme of 0.83, let's just do the second harmonic. So if that's 0.83 meters, then
2/3
this would be 0.83 for the second harmonic.
for the second harmonic, gotcha.
And what does that get you for the frequency?
413.3, if you're rounding up.
$413.3. Glad that's working. Any trouble maintaining it? I feel like I'm hearing more of the beats this time, but it could just be wishful thinking. Perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe you couldn't, maybe you can't
Yeah.
hear beats because it's dead on.
Yeah.
All right. And looking at one other aspect of sound. If I'm sitting in a spot and I let out, I hit a perfect note, or we turn that on and it's hitting a perfect note. It sends out a wave, and so this is sort of an overhead point of view. These circles right here represent sort of the high pressure. And so we have these sound waves, so at a moment in time, the sound waves are rippling out. So imagine that you got a very still pond, you throw a stone into it, and you get that rippling out, then you throw a second stone a second later, and it hits in the exact same spot as the first one, so you get a next ripple. Throw another stone a second later, you got another ripple. That's what that's supposed to represent. If after the first ripple is produced, instead of throwing the stone in the exact same spot, you throw it closer to one of the edges. So we now have, the second ripple will be centered here, the first ripple is still centered from where it started. So a moment later, that first ripple now here, the second ripple off to the side. Notice we get a bunching up here and an increased wavelength here. Again, these represent high pressure, so the distance from high pressure to high pressure is smaller, here it's larger. Now the speed at which that's going to travel is set. Once the sound is released, the source has no control over at all about the speed. And the speed is equal to frequency times wavelength. So as the wavelength decreases, the frequency goes up. So this should have a higher frequency than that would. This will have a lower frequency because it's got a bigger wavelength, smaller frequency. I'm sure most of you have felt this before at some point, standing beside the road and a car goes by. That as it's coming towards you, you get a higher frequency. As it's going away from you, you get a lower frequency. Now, for those who've studied this stuff more deeply, I do use the word pitch and frequency interchangeably because I was just raised badly.
That's called the Doppler effect, isn't it?
It is indeed called the Doppler effect.
Yeah.
Taking it one step further, you throw the first stone in there, it ripples out. The second time, you throw it outside the circle. So that first one is bigger here, the second one is like that. And now we get this overlapping. So if this was a water wave, if this was a ripple in a pond, what would this point right here be representing?
A
An increased section of water, like where it's higher up.
Constructive interference.
Yes, yes. If this were sound, what would it represent?
Higher compression in that spot.
Otherwise known, in this case, when you get the overlapping of sound from the same source,
higher.
the sonic boom.
Oh.
So we can artificially create a sonic boom, in theory. All I need to do is get a sound, get the speed of a wave traveling faster than the speed of sound. How hard can that be?
Not hard at all.
Well, remember that the speed equal to the tension over the linear density. Now, once I get the wave going, I'm really not going to change the tension in the string at all, or rope, or whatever it happens to be, but I do potentially have some control over the linear density. Now, in something like this, the linear density is pretty much the same throughout. For the same amount of length, I have the same mass. But if I had something that tapered, so if the wave's traveling this way, if I had something that tapered, then I have a certain amount of mass in some length there, I have less mass in that same length there. So the speed of the wave should be increasing as it travels if it's tapering off. Now, if the other end is a free end, then what needs to happen is I just need the speed of the wave to be at half the speed of sound. When it gets to the free end, that free end is going to whip, basically it's going to double in speed of whatever the speed of the wave is, because in essence, you're taking it away from this side and suddenly shifting it down here. So you create a sonic boom, and this obviously is the principle behind the whip.
Oh, because it has all that energy going down in a wavelength, and then it kind of snaps and has less energy coming back up. Is that what it is?
Well, it does definitely lose some because it's interfering with the air.
Yeah.
But the move value gets small enough at the end that it allows for the wave to travel at a faster speed.
Typically, the whips that I've seen do taper off until you get to the very end, and the very end is basically a string. And so we get a very sudden drop in linear density, very big increase in speed at that point.
Okay.
And also from a other physics point of view, if this is the whip here, so usually you have a hard handle or a solid handle, and then the floppy part hangs off that. As you're whipping it, you basically have a long movement arm right here. So I apply some torque to it, which translates into a force or tension into the rope itself. If I have an even longer one, I've got a bigger torque, potentially, but I also have a larger moment of inertia, which is going to slow it down. So there's sort of an optimum based on, usually, my experience is based on the individual whip itself. But the people who do this professionally, think of Renaissance festivals, their arms are about twice as big as mine. And if you ever see the videos put out by Adam, I think he goes by the stage name of Adam Crack. Yeah,
Well, his whip is like probably twice the size of him, in length.
Yeah.
Most of the time, because like the longer the whip, I think the louder the crack is with a certain amount of force.
it seems to be. He also has managed the sonic boom on something that's basically the size of a football field.
Wow.
It's not in the air, so basically he's at one and the rest of it's on the ground. He does this on it, and
Yeah.
the wave travels the transverse wave travels all the way down to the end, and you definitely hear the pop at the end.
Yeah, I've seen a video of a guy that had a large section of chain
Yep.
and sort of ran down a road with it and tossed it, and then the other end came around and cracked like a whip too.
Yeah.
Although it was much thicker.
Yeah, I've seen people crack chains. You got to be careful about, is it really a sonic boom, or is it just one thing smacking against another? Now, I'm not saying it's not, but I can give the illusion of a sonic boom, I think. And that was my knuckle and this. There we go. So that's just like one hand clapping against another.
In this case, it was just a chain that was like on the ground.
Yeah.
It was just being moved.
I don't know if the ground will have any interference with it, but he ran straight and then turned around. So there was a big, like as he drug the train this way, I guess the wave stayed the same, but it just had more energy as it traveled down to the end of the chain where it got smaller at the end. And then as it rounded that curve, it hit a point where it completely extended and it cracked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
I don't know if friction would have anything to do with that either, but probably would not help his case.
I wouldn't think so, but.
Yeah.
There's some amazingly talented people out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it feels like sometimes the untalented people are the ones who produce videos
Yeah.
and have, you know, a fan base in Cambodia and Pakistan. Yeah, I've done shout outs to Cambodia, I've also had Pakistan. I think Pakistan banned one of my videos, so I always picture it. Part of me thinks it's the security people watching another one of my videos, and they're gonna ban this one.
They banned one of your videos?
Yeah, it was showing what they felt was copyrighted material, which was strange, because it was it was a newsreel from the 40s. And it wasn't banned in the US. Apparently they picked that out to be, no, you can't show it.
Copyright? Okay.
Maybe there's some other reason.
Possibly.
It was a bridge failure.
I have a couple questions.